and welcome to a special Labor Day weekend edition of Zoom with Czarny. I'm Dustin Czarny, Democratic Elections Commissioner, and welcome to the show. This is my interview show, and as always, around Labor Day, I have my good friend Mark Spadafore. He's the president of the Greater Syracuse Labor Council, also known as the President on the Porch. He does a weekly podcast, President on the Porch, and also a good friend. He's the foremost expert on labor in Central New York, and we have a great talk about what's going on with labor. You may notice that things are a little weird here because I'm coming to you on a Sunday instead of a Thursday, and that's because I'm kind of taking the weekend of Labor Day off. I'm not doing a weekly wonk. There was a lot of stuff going on this week with the getting ready for our poll site manager training, as well as dealing with those pesky, it seems like Board of Elections staff impersonators that are going around the state. So I'm actually going to take this weekend off and recharge, recalibrate, and come back next weekend and next week with my regular schedule of content. So back to Tuesdays, Commissioner in the Car, and then Thursdays, Zoom with Czarny, and then my weekly walk on the weekend. And sometime in September, I'll be doing a Czarny seminar on registering to vote. So that's the content that I got coming up for you. And that's why things have changed a little bit here. So, and I am still very concerned about these Board of Elections impersonators. When I came to you on Tuesday, I talked about that we had a few reports. We've continued to give those reports to the district attorney. This is not something that is happening just in Onondaga County. It has stuff that is happening in a lot of different counties throughout upstate New York are reporting this. So, this seems to be a statewide effort, and I hope that in addition to the DA and the sheriff, who have been excellent in getting back to us and getting right on this investigation here locally, that the Attorney General will get involved as well. And I know the state board is pushing them to do that. So I'm very hopeful that that's going to get done shortly. So again, thank you very much for coming today. And please stay tuned for my interview with Mark Spadafore, president of the Greater Syracuse Labor Council and a good friend. Bye-bye. We're back. I'm very happy to have my good friend Mark Spadafore. Mark is the president on the Porch. He is the president of the Greater Syracuse Labor Council and runs his weekly podcast, President on the Porch, but also a good friend and just an incredible resource for labor in Central New York. And now, next week is Labor Day, so we're doing our annual Labor Day chat. Mark, thanks so much for coming on Zoom with Czarny.
And I am on the porch, even though I got my background on because I'm on Zoom.
You're on the porch?
I am in the porch, yes. And everything that goes into the porch, my wife is midwifing monarch butterflies to the right of me. So, it's the porch. Yeah.
So, Mark, before we get started, there's always new people watching this and stuff. So tell people a little bit about yourself and what is the Greater Syracuse Labor Council?
Well, let me start with the organization first. The Greater Syracuse Labor Council is the local umbrella organization for about 35,000 union members in Onondaga and Madison counties. And so these are we're the umbrella. So when you hear of all these other unions like the Teamsters or the Steelworkers or the Teachers Union, that's the umbrella. We're the umbrella organization on the local level. We're affiliated nationally with the national AFL-CIO and statewide with the New York State AFL-CIO, and more regionally with the Central New York Area Labor Federation. So that's kind of the hierarchy of the umbrella organizations of the labor movement. For me, I started, I'm a local guy, graduated from local high school. Then I went on, graduated from Cuca College with a bachelor's, and then just kind of kicked around local politics for many years, and eventually the position, an organizer position, opened up at the Greater Syracuse Labor Council 25 years ago, and it seems I've stuck around ever since.
So, in your, leading up to the, to Labor Day, obviously you have a couple of things that you do. I mean, coming on my show is the very smallest of all those things, but you also released a letter to the editor last week, titled "This Is Our Moment." and it really
Mhm.
goes into the pandemic and how the tight labor market has brought about a resurgence in not just here in central New York, but throughout the country of labor and organized labor, because we've seen a kind of a diving down of union membership over the last 20, 30
Mhm.
years. And though it hasn't quite gained, it's definitely plateaued a little bit and maybe started to gain. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Why are we seeing this resurgence in union labor?
Well, there's a few things going on. Like you mentioned, even though we don't want to talk about anymore the effects of the pandemic, we're all kind of over it, but we're still feeling the aftershocks of that. Whether it's the aftershocks from the supply chains, and how it affected, labor there, to what people are going through right now, or I think much more broadly, a lot of people really reassess their lives at that point, and they're like, why am I knocking myself out, at work, and where I can't enjoy what I'm working for. I can't enjoy my family, or I can't go off and do the things I want to do because, I'm being called into work all the time, things like that. And, so you saw things like the Great Resignation, things that, that was because people did that. A lot of people just left the workforce, what have you. But what's happening now is it's really forced up wages where, I mean, I could speak specifically for our union, from the union I work for, 1199 SDIU. We represent healthcare workers. We just settled a contract over at Loretto, where, some of our certified nurse assistants are getting like some of the highest rates, starting rates that in the area. It's really setting the standard. So now, we settled Menora Park right after that, and the cottages right after that at the same rate. And other nursing homes now have to look and be like, if I'm not paying that, they're going to go over there. And I can tell you what's the effects it's had. We just had a new work orientation at Loretto, 75 people through the doors, and it shows that when you pay people well, they will work, but they're not going to just simply do the same old things that they did before. The game has changed. And that's been reflected, I think, you think across the country for those who are organized. And then those that aren't organized are like, look, my job stinks. I don't want to just go to another bad job. I want to have an opportunity to really do something. So what can I do? And so one of the answers is looking to organize our workplace into a union.
And you said like the game has changed, and that kind of leads me into TCG Player, which
Mhm.
is a big local success that is organizing. And that actually, I actually even thought it was because of the selling off to eBay, but you said that this was actually starting before
It did.
this, and then you saw the Syracuse University grad students, our first Starbucks victory
Yep.
when it comes to organizing. Um, you talked about the Great Resignation, but I've always wondered if that's mainly people quitting second jobs too, and
Hmm.
learning to live on one salary, or in wanting that one salary to be
Yeah.
better. There's a little bit of that as well. But why do you think these three local successes that we've seen of new labor, new kinds of labor? I don't think 20 years ago we would have thought of a coffee shop organizing, or a card trading company organizing, or graduate students organizing. What does this mean for the future of labor?
Well, first is that the employers that you mentioned, the people who work there were younger too. I think I like last year my comment was really about how young workers are kind of leading the way, and this is kind of a continuation of that. Is that younger workers, they're basically like, it's really kind of funny when we're both about the same age. When we were coming up, we had to kind of grin and bear it, and and suck it up. And these kids are like, I'm not sucking it up. I'm not going to grin and bear it. I'm going to change things. And they're really leading the way. And I gotta say too, I mean, they've gone, I mean, especially the TCG Player, it's not as big as the graduate students, but the fact that they are facing off now against eBay, this big tech company, but I mean, it's really caught national attention. One of the the workers got to actually talk to President Biden, about this and about and how hard it was to organize and the struggle they have now to get a first contract. I mean, at the end of the day, like you were talking earlier about the decline of labor, it's really because the laws of how you organize a union are so antiquated and so tough for workers to form a union. And then even when they form a union, eBay actually has now dropped their appeals, but they could have really spun out those appeals over and over and over again. So really, the fact that you have these workers, younger workers, who are willing to just stand up and say enough is really, I think, the cultural game change that those of us in the labor movement, like I said, I've done this for 25 years. This is the moment we've been waiting for.
Yeah. And so I did talk a little earlier that, Labor Day is next week, and you have your annual march. It's one of your biggest high profile things that I think you do as an organization. There's always the strikes, but it's big march at the Great New York State Fair. How did that come about, and why is that why has that become such a focal point of Central New York politics?
It's well, I'm glad you said politics. How it came about, and you might remember this, Marty Mack.
I remember Marty. Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, it actually goes back to then. Well, for a few things. First thing is the UAW, the United Auto Workers, when New Venture Gear was here, they had a big presence at the fair as their union, and they wanted to do something on Labor Day because nobody was doing it. We used to do things on Labor Day years and years ago, and the old traditions, especially because a lot of the traditions were like they would do like a labor mass downtown, and they would do things downtown. Well, nobody was downtown on Labor Day anymore. They were all out at the fair, so the old traditions kind of washed away. Nobody picked up the kind of the banner on it, but UAW did. And then they were really backing Marty Mack, so it turned into kind of like a Marty Mack rally. But that was the first kind of thing they did. So by the time I came around in 1998, the fair, especially at that time, was run by Republicans because George Pataki was the governor. They insisted, all right, got to get rid of the political piece. We kind of did. We got rid of that. But it started with the parade. Although 1998, we didn't have the parade because that was the big Labor Day storm. I was actually out at the fairgrounds at midnight. We were setting things up, and I got out about an hour before the storm hit. And so I was there with a guy from the Carrier local, and we were setting things up, and yeah. So, but anyway, but that's how it started. So that started, 25 years ago, to have a parade. So the next year we did. In fact, that year was a big year because it was our 100th anniversary. Of the Labor Council being incorporated, where Samuel Gompers came to Syracuse, spoke at Long Branch Park for 4 hours. And I know I can talk, but I'm not talking for 4 hours. So, but every year we've done this. Every year we've done the parade. I mean, obviously, the pandemic, we didn't do the parade, but last year was going to be our first year back, but it rained. So the good thing we have now is the Expo Center, so that if it rains, we could be inside. So we just go inside and do a rally from there, which, yeah, it's not as nice, but we're still together, especially, last year we really were kind of like, yeah, we made it through the pandemic. So.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the parade. I always think it's a fun thing, and I didn't realize it was so young. Like, people forget that George Pataki was not that long ago, and that it
seems a lot longer.
It feels a lot longer. Well, we were a lot younger, but it was. I think I always assumed that the Labor Day parade was just there in time memorial, since the beginning of the fair. But yeah, it makes sense that it would go from downtown to the fair because that's our thing.
Yeah, that was, and yeah, they used to they used to. It really was a different time, and how we kind of. I mean, it's interesting now when you see and this is kind of more not out of the labor realm, but kind of like the city, like how important downtown was, and then how we got away from that and how it's kind of come back in a lot of ways. But for us, I mean, there's 100,000 people at the fairgrounds on Labor Day. That's where you want to be, and I always say that. It's like, like everybody's like, and look at the fair has been great to us over the years. They give us, we get admission tickets for the day. We get parking passes. It really is, they're very generous to us. So we're very, I'm really grateful to be there, and not only that, but it's like, and labor is especially in New York State. New York has the highest level of union density in the country. About, one out of every 4 workers in New York belongs to a union.
Yeah, we do. We do have this little blue island here in New York when it comes to labor, and that's great. But it can always be better.
Yeah.
So
Well, especially locally. I mean, I could say this specifically.
Yeah.
For us, it's the size city we are, because we're a medium-sized city. So the bigger cities, you got a lot of big unions, things like that. And for us, because we're smaller, we got to really fight harder. So the more people belong to unions, the easier it is to negotiate those contracts and get better standards. So like I just said with the Loretto, Loretto's a big employer. We got a big standard there. All the other ones have to go up to that standard, and that would make a big difference. So the more you get it, because when, like we were talking about the UAW, when New Venture Gear closed, one of the things that, because they got sold out from Chrysler over to Magna Powertrain, and one of the things the Magna people said was, you're making too much money for your area. Because their wages were under this big national contract, so the wages were really high. And after that, and that's when it whittled away, and Magna never wanted to be here anyway, so they closed the plant.
So before we get into the future of labor, we should talk politics a little bit. So we have an election. This is a local election. You're just talking about the local influence on labor. Where has the Greater Syracuse Labor Council, have you announced your endorsements yet? When will you announce your endorsements? Is there any race that is, important to labor this year? I know everybody will gear up for Congress and president next year, but is there a race or two that you're highlighting to your membership this year?
So we're in the middle of our process. So a few weeks ago, we had what we call our candidate education night. Because one of the things that's happened over the years is that, like when I got hired, the hiring committee was like, okay, are you in a union? I wasn't at that time. They said, okay, well, what family members are in the union? Oh, my brother's a teacher. My uncle's a member local one of the IBEW. And I went on a list of things. You asked the same question. Today, kids don't have, or the younger people don't have that connection because of the big factories closing and the decline of the labor movement. So a lot of people come in, they don't know what our issues are, and how different the construction trades are from the public employees, from, the industrial unions or what have you. So what we do is we actually have a candidate education night, and we invite all candidates, regardless of party, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. We invite them in and we go through our issues. We create a booklet for them. We do a PowerPoint, and we get people to get presentations from those unions. Here's our issues. Here's what's important to us. Okay, now we went through this. And actually, one of our board members, her name is Lori Nielsen, gets up and she goes, if you don't agree with the things you said here tonight, that's fine. You don't have to apply for our endorsement. It's okay, But if you do, here's a questionnaire. You got to get them in. So we got, so now we have to review them. And in September, our September meeting, we'll be voting on recommendations on it. And that's really kind of important for us to do that, because for us to have a say on our local government. Now, let me say this about labor. Sometimes on the local issues, it's harder to get united than it is on the bigger races. So like the state and federal races next year, pretty much you're going to get a lot of unanimity on where we go on endorsements and what have you. On a local level, it's a little tougher. So, for example, a good example would be the county executives race. So you have, the Republican Ryan McMahon, you have the Democrat Bill Kenney. So the construction trades unions have a very good relationship with Ryan McMahon. because of Micron, because of other, public projects, he does, they tend to use union labor for construction. So they're going to back him. Now, the public employees in the county, I'm not sure where they are, but I know that they have not been happy with the county executive. So they might not go, they might go with Bill Kenny. So I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't talked to them specifically about it, but that's where things might go. So if that happens, obviously then for us, we don't get involved. It's a situation where, it's hard to keep kind of the house of labor on a local level because these issues break differently locally than they would on a state or a federal level. Like on a state or federal level, for us, there might be some state folks we would endorse, but that's getting harder and harder to find. And on a federal level, it's very, very difficult. If there is a Republican endorsed by labor, they have to be a real unicorn as the Republican Party is situated.
So, and you mentioned Micron, which kind of leads me right into my next segment, which is the future of labor, because we have these huge projects. We have these two huge Amazon facilities, and of course, Micron is going to dwarf those. And Amazon has been in the news nationally for union issues, and we haven't really seen a unionization effort at this Amazon, though. I can tell you,
there has been. You just don't know. Well, that's the thing, you don't know about it.
That's right. But I can tell you from picking up some of the workers, in my Uber, they all complain about, the type of treatment that they get, that they feel like they're just cogs in the machine. And now we got Micron coming in, and they have, two sets of labor right here. You have the labor to build the huge facilities, and then you have the labor inside the facilities. And what do you think is the future of organizing there and other places in central New York?
So Micron's very interesting, and I actually, this is my coin. This is mine, so I can use this. But I call it Micron does what I call the Wegmans model. And what the Wegmans model is, if you go to Wegmans, so that building was built union. The stuff you see on the shelves was brought there by warehouse workers and truck drivers that are Teamsters. When you go pick up a Wegmans brand bread, that was made out of a bakery in Rochester that is unionized. So that way it is. But Wegmans will fight tooth and nail to make sure that the workers inside that facility are not union, so that they can basically hire and fire and do what they want, to keep that at-will employees going, so that they can make unilateral changes. They don't have to consult with their workers and what have you. Now, look, you could talk to a lot of Wegmans folks. A lot of them are very happy working there. I have family that works there that loves working there, and that's fine. That's good for them. But I use that as a model because that's what Micron is doing. They've signed a 25-year project labor agreement. What a project labor agreement is, it's an agreement between an employer and the employer and the usually the local construction trades on that to keep the workers local. So in other words, they have to go to the local hiring halls first to fill the jobs, and it's great for the local building trade unions. So Micron has been very good on that, and it's been a boon for the local building trades. The electricians, the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, they're doubling their training center. The carpenters union, they're tripling their size of their training center. The Teamsters have restarted their driving school because of, well, you got Micron, you got the 81 project, and now you have the United Nation. They're saying they're going to double in 3 years. So you have so much work and not enough workers to do all these projects. So they're taking everybody in to try to get them trained up for this. But if any union, so let's say the factories are built, and now they're making chips out at Micron. Any union's going to organize them. I guarantee you, and this is, look at, it's not a criticism per se of Micron. It's, the system, don't hate the player, hate the game. Well, the game is rigged against work. So Micron's going to be like, we want to make unilateral changes if we have to. We don't have to consult a union to do that. Or, to agree to work rules, things like that. We're not going to give up that power inside the facility. They'll fight tooth and nail. So, let's say, Union X wants to go organize them. They're going to have a tough slog. I say, now's the time to do it when it's, when it's younger, and to try to get them as they're coming in the door. Although that has its challenges, but it is that. So that's what I think is going to happen on the Micron. Is that it's a boon for the building trades, and I'm very happy for them. And it's not just about the manufacturing jobs. Think about everything else that goes in there. The maintenance, the custodial, things that the service sector part of that, or even not even Micron. They're talking about all these other kind of chain companies are going to sprout up. That's other opportunities to organize. So it might even be at Micron, it might be these other places. But again, the laws are so bad and antiquated for workers. We really need to change that. President Biden tried to actually put some of that. There's this legislation we've been fighting for years called the PRO Act. The Pass the Right to Organize Act is what it stands for, to make it easier for workers to join unions. When it was obvious it wasn't going to get through a filibuster, even Biden thought he put parts of it into Build Back Better, but we couldn't get that through. So, every time we try to figure that out, there's always something there to block. So, but at the end of the day, it might not matter, depending on how, if you got younger people working there, and they might say, hey, I don't like this, I really want a union. So, it's a time for opportunities, and how are we going to seize those opportunities, and hopefully, get to a place where, people there are getting paid good wages and benefits.
Yeah.
That was a long answer, I know.
No, it's a good answer, but even though it wasn't a long answer, we didn't really kind of talk about Amazon a little bit. I a lot of people ask me about that. So is there any future of organizing at our local Amazon facilities, or is that going to be a while because Amazon is fighting it tooth and nail in some of their bigger facilities?
So the first Amazon in Staten Island was organized by an independent union called the Amazon Labor Union. And Chris Smalls was like kind of the cause celeb at the for last year, and certainly still this year. But like I was saying before, not only is it hard because of the laws to organize, but to get the first contract. So Amazon's just spinning their wheels on spinning it out so that they don't get a first contract. So then they could turn around and say, well, we're not going to recognize the union because too many people have left since the original election. You don't have a majority anymore. There's all these games that can play on the legal end to stop it from happening. And it's basically a way for the employer to go, you have no power here. And until the government can fix that, the good thing about Biden is the we're getting some great rulings out of the governmental board that oversees this stuff, the National Labor Relations Board. And we're getting rulings we've never gotten before. It's really kind of helped us with organizing and all that. So he's been probably the best president for organized labor ever, to be blunt. Definitely since Roosevelt. But having said that, with Amazon, the thing you have to look at there is what just happened at UPS. Because the Teamsters, and I got to give their president, Sean O'Brien, a lot of credit. He really put together the plan to really get a good contract out of that. Because their contract was going to expire at the end of July. He really prepped them that we were going to go on strike, and we were going to fight hard to get the things that we need, especially the two-tier system that was created years ago, trying to move up the part-time salaries and things like that. And they largely succeeded. In fact, they're setting some really high standards. In fact, the CEO said that some UPS drivers will be making $170,000 a year, and I would also argue with a pension and with good health benefits on top of it. So and I think they got the 170 number because they're including all that, but still, the point is that you're going to have a good life. You're going to work your tail off. Let me tell you, it's UPS. Have you ever seen those drivers? They work their tail off, but they're going to have a good middle class life, and they're going to not have to struggle, like they have before. And they're going to get things like finally getting air conditioned trucks, and they're going to get things, to make their lives a little bit better in their work lives. That contract, though, was clearly aimed at Amazon, because now they can look at Amazon and be like, look at, we got a UPS, this big company, and especially with Amazon's going to be looked at now for, maybe being broken up in a couple different companies and what have you. So with Amazon, they got to be looking now at UPS going, okay, this is the standard now. How are we going to figure it? Because a lot of workers, like those disgruntled workers, they could probably go get a job right now over at UPS and be making more money right away with better work rules, and they got a union. So Amazon, I think there's going to be a lot of possibilities there. I know that like Chris Smalls came to Syracuse last year, and I knew they had some interest out there. I know there's another union.
Well, that's interesting to know that there's some movement up on Amazon, so I'm glad to hear that. So, we're getting towards the end of this podcast, so the length that we like to have. I can talk to you forever and have. We could have talked about the victory in Liverpool just recently. That was but we talked to Liverpool about that, so we'll talk to that. But I just want to ask you, what haven't we talked about? That's always the last question I like to do. So, floor is yours.
Well,
anything.
All right. Well, first off, I want to encourage anybody who's watching this or what have you to come to our parade. It's at 10:30 on Labor Day. We meet at the Expo Center. The parade route is to go kind of down around the Expo Center, all the way down, around, and back. So I also like to say it's the shortest Labor Day parade in the country because it's around the fairgrounds. And then we have a rally afterwards. Our featured speaker is Bob Reap. And people don't know this, but Bob is a guy from Cicero. He is the number 2 person in the Insulators Union. So we have a local person who's actually a big national leader. I mean, he meets with President Biden. He tells me about that. In fact, he says that a lot of people say that President Biden, oh, he's too old, this and that. He goes, that guy's sharp as a tack, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and was great. It was great meeting him and talking to him. So you have that. And the other thing is, like, look, if you are wondering, geez, I wonder if I can have a union here. I think the most important thing you have to do is don't call a union organizer right away. Talk to your coworkers and see what they say. Because it's really about collective action. It's about you and your coworkers, not just the one person. It's not just the leader. It's really about your workers coming together, being like, yeah, we want to make changes here. And that's really the most important thing. So talk to your coworkers first, and if enough of you, have an interest, then you contact and organize. You can always go to our Facebook page or our Twitter feed. I'm actually finally going to get around to getting an Instagram feed, because that's where the young kids are.
And all those links will be right in your bio, right in the show notes. So make sure you go do all of that. Mark, thank you again. You're a wonderful leader here in Central New York, wonderful leader for labor and, politics and Democrats. And so thank you again, and hope to see you at the parade on Monday.
Great to see you there, and hope to see everybody else there. Thank you.
Bye-bye. And that was my interview with Mark Spadafore, president of the Greater Syracuse Labor Council, the foremost expert in labor in Central New York. If you're going to the fair on Monday, please check out that great Labor Day parade. It's a wonderful parade, showcasing all the great unions here in Central New York and upstate New York. So check that out. As I said, next week I'm going to get back on my regular content. Tuesday, Commissioner in the Car. We'll be talking about voter registration and getting ready for the general election. We're finally starting to get into general election mode. My Zoom with Czarny next week will be Dan Romeo, who's running for the 7th Onondaga County Legislative District, and I will resume my weekly walk next weekend with the town of Tully, my last of my towns where there are competitive elections this year. And again, go to DustinZarny.com. You can subscribe, and for free. It's always going to be free. I'll never do ads. I pay for it out of my own pocket with no outside money, because I believe this is part of my educational component of being an elections commissioner. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.